Welcome into Rick Renner, Texas High School Hysteria. Make sure you tune in to our weekly show on YouTube, Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, Pandora, Odyssey, or any of your favorite streaming platforms. Subscribe now and never miss an episode. Joining me now, a man who has risen to the highest level in coaching and administration. He's coached in a state championship game. He's coached two of the statistically best players in state history, a former president of Texas High School Coaches Association. He's done it all, and now he is the official mayor of the city of Rockwall, the one and only Rodney Webb, the head coach of Rockwall-Heath. Coach, how you doing? Thanks so much for doing this.
Well, thanks for having me on, Rick. It's my pleasure. I'm doing great.
Well, tell me about this whole process. So you're over there at the Highland Park ISD, you're probably playing golf 2, 3, 4 times a week and watching Randy Allen put together his next state championship contender. Whatever made you want to get back into coaching?
Well, Rick, it's an interesting question, and not the first time I've gotten that question, by the way. I was very happy at Highland Park. I think a lot of people have assumed I didn't really like the AD lifestyle or I didn't like it at Highland Park. None of that's true. I enjoyed the job. I really, really enjoyed the people over there. Wonderful people in the Highland Park ISD, the community, the district itself, the kids, awesome experience for me. But somewhere along the way, I realized that I missed coaching more than I thought I would. I realized that I had more gas in the tank than I thought I did. But having said all that, I was not looking to get back in. We are committed to living in Rockwall. When I left Guyer, one of the reasons I left Guyer was to get home. My wife missed friends and family. I missed friends and family. So we moved back to Rockwall, and our commitment was to live in Rockwall. And so the conversation between my wife and I came up back in December. She said, I know you miss it. Do you think you'll get back in? And I said, well, I do miss it, but I cannot imagine any scenario where I would be living in Rockwall and getting back into high school coaching. Fast forward 3 months, the opportunity at Heath came up, and I just thought, well, this is divine intervention right here. To be honest, it's very intriguing to me to take over on the other side of town, the arch rival school. I mean, there's a lot of people now. There are some salty people on the north side of town here in Rockwall. Let me tell you, I get some sideways glances, when I'm up on the square or really anywhere in town. But the opportunity to come back and coach at the rival school, the opportunity, because I'm an invested member of this community, and the opportunity to come back. There's a school that was in need. That program had wound up in the ditch, and that's just what it was. And I knew that they needed help, and there are kids in that part of town that I'm tight with. Their parents in that part of town. I've got family down in that part of town. We lived in Heath for 13 years, so I've got a pretty strong connection with the Heath community. So I just saw it as an opportunity to get back in and finish the run.
Yeah, you look at the I-30 football classic, and it has to be one of the most heated rivalries in state history. You being on the Rockwall side, having all that success, and now with Heath. But you are that unifier kind of guy, and you're going to be loved by both communities here. How do you pull that off?
Well, I think the biggest reason probably why the people in Rockwall were interested in bringing me back was the trust factor. I mean, I've just been here for a long time, even though my coaching experience in Rockwall has been on the north side. The people on the south side know me as a resident of Heath. They know me as a coach at Rockwall. And I think there was a trust factor there. And so I do think that, I've been accepted to the level I have just because people know me and trust me and know that I'm in it for the right reasons. As far as the rivalry goes, it is a heated rivalry, and it's so much fun to coach in that game. And it's going to be weird, to be honest with you, being on the other side of it this coming year. That one night we are, the gloves are going to be off. We are going to get after it, and it's going to be a heck of an experience. But outside of that, as I've told everybody, if people expected me to come in and be a Rockwall hater, I'm not going to do that. Some of my best friends in the world are on that staff at Rockwall. The majority of that staff at Rockwall are guys that I hired during my time there. And so I'm still tight with those guys. I love those guys. And any other night of the year, I'm going to pull for the orange and white. I hope they win, but not on that night. And I'm firmly a believer in the people that I work for, and so I bleed red and black at this point, and we're going to try to win them all at Heath.
Yeah, you look at your old assistant Trey Brooks. He's done one heck of a job as head coach at Rockwall. He took over after you left and went to Denton Guyer. I'm kind of thinking about that battle, the battle of I-30, when those two schools get together, and the fact that there's such a familiarity between the two coaching staffs now. Is it going to be like synchronized swimming? You go this way, he goes that way, and you guys are going to try to out-trick each other?
Yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting because we are facsimiles offensively. They have changed very little since my time there. I have changed very little. And so there is going to be an air of familiarity for sure. I don't think they're going to be now. They're probably going to be a few trick plays here and there, things that we've kind of held up our sleeve up to that point in the season. But outside of that, there is going to be some familiarity. We're going to have to get a little bit creative with the verbiage that we use on the field, because it really hasn't changed very much. But having said all that, I think sometimes people overrate that end of it. Both teams are fast tempo teams, so you have very little time if you're attempting to get a signal or listen to the verbal communication. You've got very little time to process it. So, to be honest with you, I'm not sure that either side is going to have much of an advantage when it comes to that.
You look at the Rockwall community; it's such a special community and tight knit. What do you think stands out and makes it different than all these other great cities in the state of Texas?
Well, I think one thing is the location. Rockwall is on the east side of Lake Ray Hubbard, and so we very much have a sense of community. Most of DFW is you go from one town to the next, and you're not even sure when you left that one town and went into the next one. And so with Rockwall, when you cross that lake, it is very much a community that stands alone. And I think that one of the cool things about Rockwall is that even though there are two high schools, it really is one town. Heath is a small community just to the south of Rockwall, but it basically is Rockwall. And so these kids go to church together, oftentimes went to middle school together. They play in youth leagues together. Parents are friends through all the different community avenues. And so I just think that the sense of community, even though we have two high schools, is pretty special.
Yeah, it's so much fun to watch. And that rivalry, when they get together, there's nothing like it. And I kind of wonder, from your perspective, how did you view, when you were a Yellow Jackets coach, how did you view Rockwall-Heath? And then how do you view it now? What's different about that?
Well, you're always, whatever side of it you're on, you always have probably a little bit of less of an opinion of the opposite school. So for me, when I was at Rockwall, Heath was the rival, and we wanted to win that game. And now that I'm at Heath, Rockwall is the rival, and we want to win that game. And so I do think this, when it comes to the rivalry, I think it is important for everybody to understand that the big picture is we are playing for state championships. We're not playing to beat Rockwall. And oftentimes what has happened in that rivalry is after the game, no matter who won, both teams the next 2 or 3 weeks will play flat because they put so much into that one game. At the end of the day, it's the first district game, and that's all it is. So one of the things I'm going to preach to all of our people, especially our players, is that it is still one game, and it will not define our season, win or lose, because I've been on both sides of that before. We lost a couple of tough ones to Heath in 2016 and 2017, right at the end of the game. And that was devastating for us. And we came back out the next couple of weeks and did not play well. Ended up getting everything back together and made pretty good runs both years. But the same thing happened to Heath. They won those 2 games, very exciting at the end of the game. And then they went on the following, or really the whole rest of the season. I think there was one year they didn't win another game the rest of the year. And so I think it's important for everybody to understand on both sides. And I know Trey preaches the same thing at Rockwall, that it is a game. We have bigger priorities for the totality of the season.
Heath has always had a lot of talent, and what an unbelievable baseball school. Seems like they're playing for a state championship every single year. Tell us about your team and what excites you the most about the talent you're going to be working with.
Well, I think the first thing when you look at our team coming up this year is that we are tremendously senior heavy. This has been the incoming senior class. They've been really good. I remember this class back in middle school when I was at Rockwall. They're an elite class. There are a lot of quality seniors. So from a leadership and an experience standpoint, we're going to be pretty strong. The next thing I think is the offensive skill on this team is really good and it's deep. So we're going to have two deep in our receiver core, our running back core. We've got a returning starter at quarterback in Caleb Hoover that can really spin it. And he's got all of the qualities that you look for in a great quarterback. He's tough, he's gritty, he's highly intelligent, he's competitive, he's a great leader. And so from that standpoint, our offensive skill, I think, is about as good as I've been around as a head coach. Defensively, I think our skill lies in the back end as well. Got a lot of guys coming back that can run. We've got some length at DB and some experience back there. So the strength of our team is certainly going to be in the skill positions on both sides of the ball.
That seems very dangerous for you to have all these offensive weapons right out of the gate. I mean, I think about what you've been able to do with Jackson Arnold, who ended up being the Gatorade National Player of the Year. He's going to OU, may even start as a freshman. He's that good. You had him at Denton Guyer. And then, of course, Braedyn Locke, who you started as a freshman at Rockwall. He's now at Wisconsin and doing big things with the Badgers. You've always had great receivers. Why has offense been so important to you? Because I know the competition, when they play your teams, they know they're in for a shootout no matter what. They just can't stop you.
Well, that's probably a question to be asked to maybe some of the opponents over the years. All I can tell you is that I love coaching offense. I love learning about the game. My goal has always been, let's be as irritating to the defense as we can be. Let's not make anything easy on them, however we go about doing it. And over the course of time, it's been a little bit different. There have been years where we have been a million formations and we're going to break out of a huddle and then we're going to line up and we're going to shift somebody and we're going to motion somebody, because I know defensive coordinators do not like that. There have been years where we play at a very fast tempo. We're very simple in formation, very simple in scheme, but we play really fast. And then there have been years that we've been a little bit of a combination of that. But really, to cut it down to the brass tacks, I think it just comes down to get your best 11 on the field and find ways to get the ball in the hands of the guys that can make you look good. And that's really what it is. And so that's what we're always trying to do. Let's get the ball in the hands of the guys that can make plays, and let's try to score touchdowns. I'm not interested in 3-yard gains. I'm interested in scoring touchdowns, and we want to score touchdowns as often and as fast as we can. So one of the things about us offensively is we are not scared to take chances. We're not scared to go for it on fourth down. We're not scared to take a shot in a short yardage situation. And so it's probably a little bit of a riverboat gambler mentality. And there are examples over the course of time that you can look at. Things didn't work out so well, and there was probably a situation we got a little bit aggressive when we shouldn't have been, but that's just always the mentality I've taken into a season, and it'll be no different this year.
Always fun to watch from our end. Now, recently you were inducted into the Garland Sports Hall of Fame. Tell me about that and what that means to you, because I have a feeling you're going to go into a lot of Hall of Fames before you're done.
Oh, well, I mean, it means the world to be inducted into that Hall of Fame. I'm not totally sure why I was inducted, to be honest with you. I think, I'm a graduate of North Garland High School way back in 1986. And, as I said during my induction, I was a pretty good high school player, but I wasn't a great high school player. I've never coached in Garland beyond one season as an assistant about 25 years ago. I've coached against the Garland school sometimes, but I think maybe that induction was just a little bit of a combination of my playing days in high school, my playing days in college, my career as a coach, my involvement with THSCA, maybe just a culmination of all that. And I was also the head powder puff coach when I was in high school, and we did go 2-0 my junior and senior year. So maybe it had a little bit to do with powder puff. But just really cool. Anytime you get recognized by any group like that, it's awesome, very humbling, and that was a really cool experience. Garland Hall of Fame committee does it right. They put on a tremendous program, and real big honor to be a part of that group.
Yeah, you're undefeated with Powder Puff, so that says something right there. And you have always made such a major impact in everything that you've done. I remember when you were president of the Texas High School Coaches Association, and I thought, man, what an unbelievable job you did. And the fact that there is no organization like that on the planet, and you were running it during a pandemic with COVID. How did you ever get through all that? It's pretty remarkable that was the situation that you were dealt during that time.
Yeah, and there was no blueprint. There was nothing. A lot of that, when you serve as president of THSCA, you were relying on your predecessors. How did they do it? What did they do? There's a ton of communication about, well, how did you handle this situation? And when COVID came up, there was no blueprint. Nobody I could go to say, how do we do this? And so I will tell you that the leadership of Joe Martin and Glenn West was very important during that time. A lot of prayer and just sort of figure it out. And we got put in a lot of very, very difficult situations. There was the coaches convention in the summer of 2020. We didn't have it. We were planning to have it. City of San Antonio ultimately put so many restrictions in that it wasn't really going to be possible, and probably wasn't a good idea to begin with. But how do you have a virtual coaches convention, and we figured it out. We got it done. And I tell you, as I look back on that experience, very, very fond memories of it. You normally serve 1 year as the THSCA president. I served 3 years. My predecessor, Phil, why can't I think of his name? The Cal Allen coach, Phil Danaher.
Oh, Phil Danaher.
Phil Danaher, yeah. Right. Was not able to complete his term as president. So right after I got elected, I assumed the role of president. Then I served during the COVID year, and because of a virtual convention, we didn't have an election. So I served the following year as well. So I got to do it 3 times. So I tell people I feel like the FDR of the THSCA, getting to serve 3 years.
Pretty impressive. You did an unbelievable job then, and I think about your coaching legacy. You can make the case that you're one of the most successful coaches in state history. I know you're starting to approach the 200 win area now. You've been so successful wherever you've been. 18 of the 20 years that you've been a head coach, you've made it to the playoffs. You've been in coaching for 32 years. How do you build a winning culture now at Rockwall-Heath and get them back on track? Because you've been able to do this instantly wherever you have been.
Rick, I think the first thing I would say is it is a relationship business. So for me, it's my relationship with our coaching staff. It's having a bunch of guys on the staff that you can trust, guys that trust me, guys that I've been able to hire that I know are going to be good to kids, that are going to do it the right way, that have a similar belief system. Then I think it goes to the kids, and I think the same thing. Creating those relationships. Randy Allen told me about 25 years ago, he said, kids don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I've always remembered that. And getting the kids to understand we care about them as people, not just pawns on a football field. That has a lot to do with it. I think over the course of time, continuity within the coaching staff, create an environment where coaches want to be there. My staffs have never had a great deal of turnover because coaches like coaching on my staff. We just make it fun. We spend so many hours together. You need to make it enjoyable. So that's one thing that we've always done. And then, I think beyond that, it is having a good plan, being organized. Oftentimes, I think coaches try to overcomplicate things. We try to, we go to too many clinics. We learn too many good ideas at some clinic, or we go visit a college and we try to implement all these different ideas. And the coaches that keep it simple and coach what they know and make it simple, make it translatable to the kids. And then beyond that, get your best players on the field, keep them healthy, and see what happens.
Well, let's take a trip down memory lane. And I know it's a little bit difficult because you've coached some unbelievable players. Let's go through some of your stops now. And you tell me the greatest player that you coached in that school and why. So let's start with Royse City. You were a state semifinalist back in 2004. In your time that you were at Royse City and you were so successful, who was your best player?
Oh, Rick, this this may be a no-win situation for me here. Okay, so Royse City, I don't know that I could name one at Royse City. So in no particular order, I will tell you that James Maps led us to the semifinals in 2004. He was a running back, but he played quarterback for us. He rushed for 2,500 yards. He passed for 1,800 yards and went on to be a running back at SMU. Carlos Gallegos was an elite receiver for us. And Carlos was a two-time All-State player, with tremendous receiver for us. And when we went to the air raid style of offense, he was unstoppable. And then the third person I would say would be Richard Morrison. And I left after Richard's junior year, but Richard went on to have a great career at University of Arizona. He became our quarterback, and Richard was an electric player. So those would be the three. And I don't really know if I could rank them or not.
All right, let's move on to Mesquite Horn. You made it to the playoffs all 5 years. You made it to the Class 5A regional final in 2010. Who was your best player or players at Mesquite Horn?
Okay, well, it would definitely have come off of the 2010 team. We went to the quarterfinals that year. We had a really, really good level of talent. I will pull a couple of names. Once again, I'm gonna go with three. Jakeem Grant, who is still in the NFL, was our slot receiver. He was truly an example of get the ball in his hands and he will make you look good. So we did a good job of that. Ja'Cory Shepard, who was on that same team. Ja'Cory was another receiver that played corner in college and corner in the NFL for about 3 years. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I would have to say Stephon Sanders, who was an outside linebacker in college but played defensive end for us. Stephon had a great career at SMU. Those would be the three, and they were all in the same class at Mesquite Horn.
Those were some good teams, man. Nobody liked playing you guys. So we move on to Rockwall, 7 very successful seasons there. And I know it's very hard to limit it down to one player. I think I know who number one is, but there's a lot of number 2, 2A, 2B, 2C in your time there. A year that really jumped out at everybody was in 2019 when you made it to the state semifinals in Class 6A, and you took out Big Bad, top-ranked Allen along the way. Who are your best players there?
Okay, so 7 years at Rockwall. There are a lot of names that would pop up. Obviously, Jackson-Smith Njigba would be at the top of the list. Wound up being the number 1 recruit in Texas. Set basically every receiving record to be set at the 6A level in Texas. A generational talent. Somebody that. I tell people all the time that, he was a nobody that had zero athletic ability, and I taught him everything he knows. Actually, not the truth. He
got it from his fireman father. That's where he got it from.
That's right. Yeah, I think he got some from mom and dad both, honestly. But Jackson would definitely be at the top of the list. We had a couple of players on the 2014 team that were very elite. Xavier Castile, who again had a good experience at SMU. Was a receiver for us, but Xavier was a player that could do it all. Very similar to Jackson. He was a receiver, but we could line him up at running back. He was a Wildcat quarterback. He returned kicks. He was the holder for our PAT field goal unit. He could play defense when we needed him to. Would leave it all on the field. Chris Warren, who played running back at the University of Texas. Chris's senior year got cut a little bit short due to an ankle injury. His junior year got cut short due to a knee injury. But when we had Chris healthy, he was the biggest, fastest player on the field. And he rushed for 460-something yards in one game in high school. And also then set a freshman rushing record for UT. So those would be the three names probably that would stand out the most. I only coached Braedyn Locke 1 year, but a sensational sophomore year. I think he threw for 54, 56 touchdowns that year. And Braedyn went on to have a great career and Very, very good relationship with Braedyn these days. We talk all the time on the phone still, and fond memories of him. But I can't take total credit because I just had him that one year.
Yeah, I was going to say, he just texted me. He was wanting to know why he wasn't number one, calling from Wisconsin. But
I'll get that question, believe me. Oh, yeah.
What a special kid he is, no doubt. Kind of an old soul, isn't he?
Very much. If you've ever seen those, I think maybe Progressive insurance commercials where you have the guy that's like the Dr. Phil that is trying to teach people not to be like their parents. That's Braedyn, but that's for real. That's like real life Braedyn. We're trying to get him to not act like his parents at the age of 20.
The times that I've interviewed him, I'm like, my God, has he been in the NFL for 10 years? I don't even think I'm worthy enough and smart enough to interview this guy.
Very true.
Well, and I don't want to move on to the next stop in Denton Guyer without bringing up that unbelievable game against Allen, probably one of the greatest playoff games I've ever seen, where you had that gutsy 2-point conversion to knock off the top-ranked team in the state 60-59. That was just an unbelievable game. When you think about all the games that you've been involved with, how much does that stand out? And talk about that gutsy 2-point conversion, because you did it with a player that wasn't one of your star players.
Right. So, Rick, I think you can make a 30 for 30 just on that one play. We probably don't have time to go totally into the weeds on all the things that went into that play and the execution of the play. But I will just say that, yeah, it's the greatest game I've ever been a part of. And I think I would say that win or lose just because it was, back and forth the entire game. And Allen went up at one point in time by 2 scores, and it took us no time to come back and tie it up. We went up by 2 scores, and it took them no time to come back and tie it up. And it was just one of the most wildly roller coaster-ish type games I've ever witnessed, much less been a part of. The 2-point conversion, we had a play that we had practiced the entire year. It was one of those hip pocket plays that when we need not necessarily a 2-point conversion, but when we need a touchdown, when we need to score from the red zone, when we need to convert a 4th down to win a game, this is a play that we have. We converted it the entire year. Now, Jaxson-Smith, the premise of the play was that we want the ball in his hands. He's our best player. He can throw it. He can run it. We ran a little reverse, and Jackson has the ball, and he's got the option to throw it or run it. We decided after Allen scored, right about the time Allen scored, to go up late in the game on the headsets. I'll never forget. I said, all right, y'all. The name of the play was Scotty because we stole it from Highland Park because they ran it on us the year before. And I said, all right, y'all, we're going to get the ball and score, and we're going to go for 2 to win it. And we're going to, and I didn't tell them what we're going to run. And I got crickets. And I said, is everybody on board with that? And somebody said, what are we going to run? And I said, we're going to run Scotty. We practiced it the whole year. That's the play we're going to run. So we had a 100% certain idea that we were going to score. We were going to go for 2. That's the play we were going to run. And Jackson-Smith was going to win the game for us. Well, right before we scored the touchdown, Jackson started cramping, had to come out of the game. We scored the touchdown, and I'm very confident he's got the cramp worked out. So after the touchdown, we take a timeout. Players come over, and our receivers coach, I say, hey, make sure Jackson's good to go. And 5 seconds later, he comes back. He goes, Coach, Jackson's good to go. And I look over, and Jackson's walking up to the huddle. He's giving me thumbs up. So we're committed now. We're going to run Scotty. It's our last timeout. And right at the end of the timeout, he cramps again. And our receiver coach says, Coach, Jackson can't go. And I look over, and Jackson's doubled over. His leg is in full cramp mode. So we have a kid that had repped the play about 3 times during the course of the year. Caden Marshall, who was a sophomore, was a backup receiver. Here's the thing. Caden is a great cornhole player. And believe it or not, I've got this thought. As we're in the huddle, I'm thinking to myself, Caden is such a good cornhole player. He surely can make this throw. Because, cornhole takes a little bit. You got to have a little bit of clutch psyche. And so I said, Caden, hey, can you do this? He goes, Coach, I got this. And the rest is history.
Wow.
And we won the game. Yeah.
What a story. Unbelievable. I mean, that was one of the greatest playoff games, 60-59 in advancing and taking out number 1 Allen. Amazing. Amazing. So then you go to Denton Guyer, 25-5 in 2 years. You make it to the state semifinals in 2020. And then you get to the state championship game in 2021. So many good players on both sides of the football at Denton Guyer with the Wildcats. Who are your best players there?
Well, I think without question, Jackson Arnold, as you mentioned earlier, was the Gatorade National Player of the Year as a senior. And my second year at Guyer was his junior year. So again, I did not coach him his senior year, but Jackson was, he put the offense on his shoulders in 21. The game happened so slow for him, and he's so talented in so many different ways. But the best quality of Jackson Arnold was decision making. And so we built the offense around giving him as much decision-making opportunity as we could. Pre-snap, during the snap, post-snap, run-pass option, pass-run option, because he was such a gifted runner. And so I think, Jackson really stands out. And then his compadre that's at OU with him right now, Peyton Bowen, was an elite player as well. And the thing about Peyton, such a ball skill defensive back. We used him occasionally at offense. If we needed a big play, he could come in and play receiver and give us immediate offense whenever we needed it. So those two guys stand out. A young man named Marquand Pope played safety for us, was an instrumental player in our 21 state championship game run. Went on to the University of Pittsburgh. Cooper Lands was a defensive end on the 2020 team. Cooper was the state player of the year defensively. He's at Baylor now. And so, those are the four guys that really sort of stand out. But as you mentioned, Rick, you don't make a semifinal run and a state finals run without having a lot of really good players. And we had plenty on both sides of the ball there.
So much fun to talk about your players. And I think about these guys like Jaxson-Smith Njigba, who broke all kinds of state records all time and many records at Ohio State. Now he's going to be in the NFL with the Seattle Seahawks. Braedyn Locke doing big things in Wisconsin with the Badgers. He's the all-time touchdown king in state history as a quarterback. Does it give you a sense of pride when you see that these kids played for you and enjoyed doing that? Because you're such a great coach and a player's coach. And to see these guys go on and do big things on the next level.
Oh, absolutely. I'm so prideful when I see them go on and have success. But I'll tell you though, Rick, it's not just the Division I players that are having success on a national level. It obviously is, and I love to follow those guys, and they're the easiest ones to follow. But it's the guys that go on and play small college football, the guys that don't even go on and play football. But there have been some kids that have gone on and got their college degree, and I'm as proud of them as I am any kid I ever coached, just because it's a kid that didn't have a great circumstance growing up. And I think that maybe their experience playing high school football gave them the discipline and the drive that they needed to be able to go on and succeed in college, even academically. So, I'm proud of so many kids. I'm proud of the kids that have gone into coaching that I coach, because I think it says a little bit about the staff at the school, whatever school I was at the time, that we had a really positive impact on those kids, that they wanted to get out and say, I want to be like my coaches. And so I'm really proud of that. I think we were talking the other day, I counted up, I have 28 former players that are now coaches. And that's probably as prideful of a stat for me as anything. But certainly proud to watch those guys. And right now, as you mentioned, Jackson and Peyton, Cooper down at Baylor, and Braedyn Locke up at Wisconsin, and so many different players that I had to follow. So Saturday afternoons, I'm constantly just looking to see how these guys are progressing and playing. Jacob Clark will be the starting quarterback at Missouri State this year. And so really excited about watching Jacob. He was our quarterback at Rockwall in 2017 and 2018. So very, very prideful though, for sure.
Yeah. And I know you're prideful too of these guys just being great young men in life, being husbands and just being great in the community. Why has that been so important to you?
Well, I think it's because we're practicing what we preach. You asked the question earlier about success on the field. And to me, it has everything to do with with doing all the little things right off the field, coaching character, coaching class, the discipline that it takes, learning how to overcome adversity, all the lessons that we teach in high school athletics, football in particular, they really are lessons that get you wins on the field, but they also give you wins in life. And so I think that, again, not to say that we can take all the credit in the world. We were a part of the kids' experience growing up, but I hope that we're an important part of it, and that their future success in some small measure has something to do with their experience as a high school football player in our program. And I'll tell you, Rick, we're not, my programs are never going to cheat. We're never going to take a shortcut. Nobody can ever accuse us of recruiting or, getting a bunch of move-ins. All of a sudden kids start showing up. That'll never happen. And so I'm also proud of the fact that we have done it with homegrown kids.
Really well said. I mean, I also think about, the common denominator of all your teams is fearlessness. There's so many situations that your teams have been in that you would think the odds are stacked against them. They're not going to win. One that really jumps out at me is one of the playoff teams that you had at Rockwall, maybe not a great regular season record. You went into the Woodlands where they never lose home games, and you beat them in a playoff game to advance in the playoffs. How are you able to teach that to a team and make them fearless in those situations when the odds are all against them?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with the team that we're playing, the situation, the team that I'm coaching. And I could give so many examples over the years of different approaches to a game. And as you said, that was one in particular that you say, well, as I recall, they had not lost on that field in 5 years. We had been down the previous week to watch them play their last regular season game. And I sat in that Wood Forest Bank Stadium and I thought to myself, I do not want to play the Woodlands on Friday night at their place. But we were the road team in the first round of the playoffs that year, so we had to play them at their place. But the rules don't say anything about when you play them. So we flipped the Woodlands for Saturday afternoon. I did not want our people having to make that drive on Friday afternoon. We would not have had a very good crowd, but I also knew that was the Saturday going into Thanksgiving break. And I knew that a lot of those people at the Woodlands were going to be leaving to go on vacation. So we got them, we won the flip, and we got the game Saturday at 4 p.m. And so I think that probably had as much to do with that particular upset as anything, is they didn't have a lot of juice that day. They didn't have a lot of fans in the stands. A lot of those people that headed out for vacation, their players were flat. And so sometimes it not only do you get your players prepared to play their best and believe in all that, but at the same time, sometimes you try to find an opportune moment to level the playing field a little bit, and so that's in that particular case what we did, and it worked out for us.
Now, recently I was watching one of the shows, Rockwall County Game Day with Chris Pena, and I saw some crazy thing where you said you would cut off your pinky to play Augusta National. Is that true, or is that just kind of hyperbole?
No, it's true. It's true. We are always, my wife and I, we're always talking about hypotheticals. And I got the opportunity in 2019. I won the Masters lottery, and I drew tickets for the Sunday final round, and that's when Tiger won. So we were there on the Sunday that Tiger won. We actually, kind of a long story, we secured 2 tickets for the Saturday round as well through another means. And so we were there Saturday and Sunday, had a chance to walk that course, and really cool as a spectator to be on the grounds at Augusta. But to play it, yeah, I would. It goes beyond, financially what I would pay to play it. I think I would do some self-harm to have an opportunity to play that course. Now, at the same time, I also feel like I probably shoot about 130 on that course, and I'd have to take about 24 golf balls, I believe.
Well, when we're taping this, it's before your big trip to Ireland, and I know you're going to go to St. Andrews, you and your wife. How much are you excited to go do that and really see the spectacle that it is? Will you get a chance to play and deal with the Valley of Sin? Because it's a little bit different than the tribute at the Colony.
Yeah, it's a little bit different for sure. We are going to the old course in St. Andrews. We're actually going to be there the day of the final round of the U.S. Open.
Wow.
And we are not going to get to play the old course, but because we're going to be there on a Sunday, the course is closed for golf, but it's open for walkers. So what I'm going to do is walk the old course, and I'm going to play a virtual round of golf, like in my head. And I'll never shoot a bad shot, by the way. In my head, where would I hit this drive? What would be my next club selection? And so what I'm going to be able to do is give you my virtual score on the old course at St. Andrews. And we'll just leave it at that. And I'm going to lose no golf balls that day.
Yeah, you're breaking 80. There is no doubt in my mind.
For sure. For sure.
Well, when you took this Rockwall-Heath job, you had a great quote. You said, hey, my home is in Rockwall, my people are in Rockwall, and Rockwall-Heath, they need me. What did you mean by that?
Well, I'll go back to sort of what we talked about earlier. I just feel like the program needed to be pulled out of the ditch. They had gone through a really, really bad episode, and there just weren't many people that I think had the trust of the community that could come in and trudge forward. I didn't have to come in and apologize for anything. I told everybody from the start, I will not apologize for hard work. I'm not coming in with kid gloves on, but at the same time, you have to trust me that we're going to do it right. And what I found when I got here was that everybody was ready to move forward. Everybody was ready to turn the page. Everybody, the kids, the parents, the community, the admin, everybody was ready to move forward. And so that's what we've done. And so I just feel like when I said they need me is that I feel like there just weren't many people that could have come in and picked up the pieces as fast as I was able to do.
Well said, my man. It's going to be exciting. We can't wait to see what you do with the Heath Hawks. You've been a winner everywhere you've been. I know that community is so excited to have you there. Thanks so much for doing this. You've always been one of my favorites. Continued success, my man.
Hey, I appreciate it, Rick, very much.
Thanks for checking out Rick Renner, Texas High School Hysteria. Make sure you subscribe and never miss an episode. You can catch us on YouTube, Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and Odyssey, or any of your favorite streaming platforms. Tune in and we will see you soon.